my friend. We are all interested in the future, for that is where you and I are going to spend the rest of our lives. And remember, my friend, future events such as these will affect you in the future. You are interested in the unknown, the mysterious, the unexplainable. That is why you are here. And now, for the first time, we are bringing to you the full story of what happened on that fateful day.
Soul making, sound shaking, earth quaking, change.
It's August 13th, 2015. This is the Bullshit File, open source investigating at www.suchbs.com. As we dig into the stories that the mainstream media is either misrepresenting or underreporting, so we go beyond what you see on your newspaper headlines and your TV programs. This is episode number 2, and the title of this episode is The Email That Could Land You in Jail, Part 1, Hillary Clinton's Email Server, the CIA, and Top Secret Information. So today we're going to be looking at the Hillary Clinton email scandal, and I'm sure you've probably seen it all over the news. She's in some pretty hot water right now. At this point in time, we're not exactly sure what's going on, only that this scandal continues to linger and plague her 2016 presidential campaign, and it just keeps unfolding and unfolding and unfolding. It started out with her using private email, and then she deleted the emails, and now there's confidential and classified information that's been found on these emails. So this thing is just an absolute mess. Now, before I get into what we're going to cover today, I just want to say that I don't want to be accused of being a partisan Democrat hater or a Hillary hater or, whatever. So I will point you to a very interesting saga that happened while George W. Bush was president. In fact, almost the exact same thing happened. His administration and the Republican officials were using private emails, and there were possibly as many as 22 million of them deleted. So just type in Bush White House email scandal or something like that, and you can get the full details of that. I'll drop a link to a timeline of it in the show notes. So specifically today, I want to cover, we're not going to look at the stuff that's in the news about who sent the classified emails and who got them and who knew about what. We're not going to look at any of that bullshit. Instead, we're going to examine what appears to be a well-connected, off-the-books intelligence network who were either being run by Hillary Clinton or hired by her, or they were working under her, or she was one of their clients. It's hard to say, but we're going to explore what we do know about Clinton's intelligence network. But first, if you haven't heard of the scandal, if you've been living under a rock or something, I'm going to play a little backgrounder I put together from various news reports, and this should help you catch up with where we are today with the scandal.
Breaking tonight, Hillary Clinton's email problem may be far worse than we thought.
What we did not know until recently was that she was using exclusively personal email accounts. There is no official State Department email account for Hillary Clinton.
You learn that she, in fact, deleted 32,000 emails that she deemed personal.
Alex, Time talks about some of the details of how Hillary Clinton and her team decided to delete some of these emails, these 30,000 emails, and it wasn't done by going into each individual email. It was done through keyword searches. Can you explain?
That's right.
But the cover-up part of this has looked so bad.
Again, let's take a deep breath here. You know, you're starting with so many assumptions that I've never had a subpoena.
You did get one in March. Couldn't be more plain. The Honorable Hillary R. Clinton.
I did not email any classified material.
Their review of just 40 of 30,000 emails Secretary Clinton turned over found 4 of them had classified information.
I never sent nor received any information that was classified at the time it was sent and received.
The Inspector General's office telling CNN they were, quote, classified when they were sent and are classified now.
And the server will remain private.
Hillary Clinton says she will now turn over her private email server to the Justice Department. This follows news that 2 emails from her personal system contain top secret information.
I think I'm probably the most transparent person in public life.
All right, so if you need a more detailed timeline, I'll include a link to the Washington Post. That was published back in March of 2015, and that'll catch you up with all the developments up to that point in time. So let's get the obvious question out of the way right up front, because in my opinion at least, it's probably the least interesting of all. And that question is, did Hillary Clinton break the law? Well, Alan Dershowitz recently went on CNN to talk with Don Lemon, and he says, of course not.
So Donald Trump is not the only one getting good news from the new CNN ORC poll. Hillary Clinton is firmly in the lead among Iowa Democrats with 50%. Challenger Bernie Sanders is second with 31%. But that poll was taken before Clinton agreed to turn over her private email server and a thumb drive with some of those files. And today, Donald Trump called the situation, and this is a quote, criminal. Is he right? And is her campaign facing trouble? Joining me now via Skype, Alan Dershowitz. His latest book is The Case Against the Iran Deal. Alan, thank you. You know, Donald Trump says it's a crime. The Intelligence Community Inspector General says at least 5 emails from Hillary Clinton's server contained classified information. Did she break the law?
Absolutely not. Trump ought to go back to school and learn about what the Constitution says. It has an ex post facto provision. It says that nobody can be convicted of a crime that wasn't a crime at the time the actions occurred. And it's just undisputed that at the time Hillary Clinton used her private email, that was permissible under the rules of the State Department, and that none of the emails were marked classified. The fact that the State Department may change its rules now, which it probably should, and the fact that some of the information has been classified after the fact are totally irrelevant to criminal charges. So let's stop talking about criminal issues. There are none on the table.
So there you have it. Nothing to see here. Everybody just move along, right? Well, not so fast. Hold on there. It might not be that cut and dry.
Breaking tonight, big news in the Hillary Clinton email scandal. Just before we came to air tonight, an unnamed State Department official telling Fox News that some of the nation's most sensitive, top secret information was communicated on Mrs. Clinton's server. It was highly classified at the time, contradicting one of the key arguments in Team Clinton's defense. Also, another big development, this State Department source suggesting to Fox that a Clinton insider must have been the one to actively strip the classification markings off of the information before sending it, which is a felony, potentially punishable by serious prison time.
Uh-oh, well, that doesn't sound too good. Here's Judge Andrew Napolitano to flesh it out a little more on Fox News.
So the source goes on to say, therefore, somewhere between the point these documents, because we believe there were 2, came into the building and the time they reached Hillary Clinton's server, someone would have had to strip the classification markings from the information before it was transmitted to her email, Hillary's email. That would constitute
a felony. Absolutely. It would actually constitute 2 felonies. The first felony would be altering a top secret document, and the second felony would be placing a top secret document in an insecure place, which is Mrs. Clinton's server, a place not controlled by the government.
Why are they so sure that happened? Why couldn't it be someone in the intelligence community screwed up and didn't mark the documents classified?
Possible, but extremely unlikely. The reason it is unlikely is because the intelligence community knows their members can go to jail for simple negligence by exposing a top secret document.
This is what they do. This is their business.
Correct. And the Justice Department is extremely harsh and intentionally so on members of the intelligence community who drop the ball by failing to protect these things.
What motive would a top staffer of Hillary Clinton's or anybody else near Hillary Clinton in her inner circle have to remove a classified marking from a couple of documents?
Okay, we may know the answer because the FBI now has the server, so they can look at this email and see if when Mrs. Clinton received it, top secret was removed.
Even though she's already done all these deletions, presumably not of this document.
Our colleagues in the intelligence community have told me with certainty if it was on that server, it can be extracted. I mean, unless
so
she took
they'll be able to tell how she received it and how it was marked.
Unless she took a blowtorch or a sledgehammer to the server, yes, they'll be able to do it. So if top secret was on there, then we know she lied and she committed a felony by possessing and storing top secret information on an insecure server. If top secret was not there, we will know that someone removed it. They can trace this back and see who sent it to them, and if when it was sent to the State Department, it had top secret on it, but when it was sent to Mrs. Clinton, top secret was removed.
This raises it to a...
Well, it certainly sounds like somebody might be going to jail. Now, we don't know if it's going to be Hillary Clinton or one of her inner circle, maybe one of her aides. Personally, I think it's highly unlikely that Clinton will go behind bars. I think a more plausible scenario will be that one of her underlings will be sacrificed. So, the final answer is, did Hillary break the law? Well, sadly, the jury is still out on that one, so I guess it's not really a final answer, but that's not really what we're going to cover today. Instead, we're going to look at why she would exclusively have wanted to use a private email, why she had no State Department email, why she would be in possession of top secret information, and why there is this continual cover-up which is ongoing, including deleting the emails, lying about it. I mean, what's this all about? And to my mind, this is the real story. And to trace that, we're going to have to go all the way back to 2013. But before we do that, let's take a direct look at what all these top secret emails that Hillary Clinton had on her server really are. And now we don't know the exact content of them, but we do have some indications. So we're going to look at the Inspector General's report for the intelligence community. This is the Inspector General is the watchdog who's supposed to, quote-unquote, watch over and have oversight over the intelligence community, which are things like the CIA, the NSA, the DIA, offices like that. Our intelligence apparatus, and it's massive in this country. So this guy's supposed to be the watchdog. Alright, so this is basically a report from the Inspector General of the Intelligence Community. It's dated 11 August 2015, and the subject is Update Classified Materials on Personal Electronic Storage Devices. And the first couple paragraphs here, we're just going to read them real quick. They say, in response to the above referenced congressional notification, my office received multiple congressional requests for copies of former Secretary Clinton's emails containing classified intelligence community, IC, information. These emails attached hereto have been properly marked by IC classification officials and include information classified up to top secret, SI, TK, no foreign. IC classification officials reviewed 2 additional emails and judged that they contained classified State Department information when originated. And it's signed by I. Charles McCullough III, who is the ICIG, the Inspector General of the Intelligence Community. Alright, now you might be asking, You know, what does all that mean? What is this classification about? It's all gibberish. And I understand if you've never looked at government documents, you might not know how the classification system works. So let's turn to an article that appeared on the Daily Beast website on August 12th, 2015. It's titled "The Spy Satellite Secrets in Hillary's Emails." And we're going to skip down and just pull out a paragraph here talking about the classification of these emails as reported by the Inspector General of the Intelligence Community. The article reads as follows. You may have seen acronym lists like these on declassified documents before and glazed over them. This is the arcane language of the cleared cognoscenti, so let me explain what this means. Top secret, as the name implies, is the highest official classification level in the U.S. government, defined as information whose unauthorized release, quote, could cause exceptionally grave damage to national security or foreign relations, unquote. SI refers to special intelligence, meaning it is information derived from intercepted communications, which is the business of the National Security Agency, America's single biggest source of intelligence. They're the guys who eavesdrop on phone calls, map who's calling whom, and comb through emails. SI is a subset of what the intelligence community calls sensitive compartmented information, or SCI, and these materials always require special handling and protection. They are kept in a sensitive compartmented information facility, or a SCIF, which is a special hardened room that is safe from both physical and electronic intrusion. TK refers to talent keyhole, which is an intelligence community caveat indicating that the classified material was obtained via satellite. NOFORN, and that's spelled NOFORN, as the name implies, means that the materials can only be shown to Americans, not to foreigners. In short, information at the top secret SI-TK no-foreign level is considered exceptionally highly classified and must be handled with great care under penalty of serious consequences for mishandling. Okay. Now, a couple things to take away from there. Again, top secret rating is like the highest official classification in the U.S. government. The special intelligence, the SI rating that is on these emails that Clinton has, it's important to note that this is a subset of the sensitive compartmented information, or SCI. These materials are very well protected and they're kept in something called a SCIF, a sensitive compartmented information facility. So this is like a cutoff room, and to get into one of these things is crazy. You gotta sign in, you gotta be cleared, you can't take like any photographic equipment or any recording devices into there. So yeah, this stuff is very well contained. Now, one of the most important pieces, I think, here is the TK classification, which refers to something called talent keyhole. And this covers, well, essentially spy satellites. Now, on Wikipedia, there's a article for sensitive compartmented information, and it does have a section that's dedicated to talent keyhole, at least what we know about it. Now, on the Wikipedia thing, they say talent keyhole covers things like imagery intelligence, so like satellite photographs, signals intelligence, things like intercepted calls or texts that bounce off satellites, and measurements and signature intelligence, which maps the target, whatever your target is, the frequency that they bounce off. That's that type of thing. So the question is, what exactly would Hillary Clinton be doing with super sensitive satellite imagery or intercepted phone calls on her private email server? Now, this could literally be anything. At this stage, we really have no confirmed information to go on, but I think we can speculate a bit and ask, could spy satellite photos or intercepted communications be useful to Clinton's intelligence network. Now you might be asking, though, well, wait a second, what's Clinton's intelligence network? Well, again, this is this group of individuals that we're going to focus on today who appear to have been operatives of an off-the-books intelligence network that was either operating under Secretary of State Clinton or they had her as one of her clients. It's really not quite clear. And we're going to be looking at the many connections they have to Bill and Hillary, the CIA, and the intelligence community. And I've dubbed this group the Clinton Intelligence Network. So to dig into the story, we're going to need to go all the way back to 2013 when a story that really didn't get much push in the mainstream media came out. Now what happened was a hacker from Romania who went by the name Guccifer, and that's spelled Guccifer. This Romanian hacker who had targeted a bunch of people, including President Bush and his father, Colin Powell, other top politicians like that. He hacked into an AOL email account which is owned by a longtime Clinton cohort, Sidney Blumenthal, and then went on to leak some of the messages out of his email box. So we'll take a look at one report here that appeared on CNN.
A hacker who is reported to have broken into correspondence involving former presidents apparently has found a new target. Confidential memos to Hillary Clinton from a former aide have been hacked, according to the website Smoking Gun. The Secret Service says it's investigating. Smoking Gun says it has been in touch with the hacker known as Guccifer. The memos, which Smoking Gun says were in the email account of former Clinton aide Sidney Blumenthal, have information on the September attack on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi, Libya. Our efforts to contact Guccifer were not successful. Smoking Gun, owned by Turner Broadcasting, the parent firm of CNN, could not provide someone to go on camera with us. Sidney Blumenthal, who has not worked for the government for several years, would not comment.
Oh, unfortunately, that doesn't tell us much. I would say take note of a few things. One, Blumenthal is not connected with the government. He's been out of the government for a while at the time of this hack, which was 2013. Also take note that some of the memos that he was passing along or some of the emails pertain to Benghazi, as we will be discussing some links this group had possibly to Benghazi in another episode. But, of course, even if you watch this whole CNN report, and it goes on for another 2 minutes, you would literally never know what any of these emails said. But since this is open source investigating, I'll link them all up in the show notes. RT carried all the emails that were linked at the time that they were released, which was in 2013. So I'll include a link to that. Also, since 2013, Guccifer has been arrested and he's in prison in Romania. He's facing down a big prison sentence there, and then also indictments in the U.S. So this guy's pretty screwed. But anyways, after he was arrested, his entire 7-gigabyte archive, apparently, was released onto the internet. So I'll throw in a link to that if you want to go look. It's out there in the open. It's actually hosted on Google's website, so you can go download it if you want and take a look at all these files that we're going to look at today. But now let's dig into Clinton's intelligence and spy network here that we're going to look at. So first off, as the CNN report noted, there were, quote, confidential memos, unquote, that Sidney Blumenthal was sending to Hillary Clinton. Now, for a more in-depth look at these memos, we're going to take a look at an article that appeared on the online website Gawker.com. And now, before you say, oh, Gawker, that's like a online tabloid website. Well, this report was done in association with ProPublica, so it does have some credibility. Alright, so let's take a look at this article that was published March 27th, 2015, and it's titled, Leaked Private Emails Reveal Ex-Clinton Aide's Secret Spy Network. We're going to skip down to about the middle of this article here. And we're talking about again, the confidential memos that Blumenthal was sending to Hillary Clinton. The dispatches from Blumenthal to Clinton's private email address were posted online after Blumenthal's account was hacked in 2013 by Romanian hacker Marcel Leal Lazar, who went by the name Guccifer. Lazar also broke into accounts belonging to George W. Bush's sister, Colin Powell, and others. He's now serving a 7-year sentence in his home country and was charged in a U.S. indictment last year. The contents of the memos, which have recently become the subject of speculation in the right-wing media, raise new questions about how Clinton used her private email account and whether she tapped into an undisclosed back channel for information on Libya's crisis and other foreign policy matters. Blumenthal, a New Yorker staff writer in the 1990s, became a top aide to President Bill Clinton and worked closely with Hillary Clinton during the fallout from the Whitewater investigation into the Clinton family. She tried to hire him when she joined President Obama's cabinet in 2009, but White House Chief of Staff Rahm Emanuel reportedly nixed the idea on the grounds Blumenthal was a divisive figure whose attacks on Obama during the Democratic primary had poisoned his relationship with the new administration. It's unclear who tasked Blumenthal, known for his fierce loyalty to the Clintons, with preparing detailed intelligence briefs. It is also not known who was paying him or where the operation got its money. The memos were marked confidential and relied in many cases on sensitive sources in the Libyan opposition and Western intelligence and security services. Other reports focused on Egypt, Germany, and Turkey. Indeed, though they were sent under Blumenthal's name, the reports appear to have been gathered and prepared by Tyler Drumheller, a former chief of the CIA's clandestine service in Europe who left the agency in 2005. Since then, he has established a consulting firm called Tyler Drumheller LLC. He has also been affiliated with a firm called DMC Worldwide, which he co-founded with Washington, D.C. Attorney Danny Murray and former General Counsel to the U.S. Capitol Police John Caulfield. DMC Worldwide's now defunct website describes it as offering, quote, innovative security and intelligence solutions to global risks in a changing world, unquote. In one exchange in March 2013, Blumenthal emailed Drumheller, thanks, can you send me the Libya report? Drumheller replied, here it is, please do not share it with Cody, I don't want Moen speculating on sources, it is on the Maghreb and Libya. Cody appears to be Cody Shearer, a longtime Clinton family operative. His brother was an ambassador under Bill Clinton, and his now-deceased sister was married to Clinton State Department official Strobe Talbot, who was in close contact with Blumenthal. Okay, so a couple things there to note. We should take note of the allegations that while Blumenthal appeared to be the point man who was passing on the information to Hillary Clinton at her secret private email address, which at that time I believe had just been broken, it appears that even though Blumenthal was passing on the reports, they were really being prepared and created by Tyler Drumheller. Also, you should take note of another well-connected Clinton operative, a man named Cody Shearer, who seems to somehow be plugged into this intelligence network. We will examine Shearer more in a moment. Now, in June 2015, Sidney Blumenthal was brought before the House Select Committee on Benghazi to give testimony on these whole emails and the intelligence reports he was sending to Clinton while she was Secretary of State. Now, this testimony was given behind closed doors, so it's not available to the public, unfortunately. But there have been some info about the testimony leaked to the press. So we're going to take a look at a report that appeared on Politico.com June 16th, 2015. This article is titled, Blumenthal says he didn't write Libya intel he sent Clinton. And we're going to just rip the first couple paragraphs here. Sidney Blumenthal did not write or know the source of any of the Libya intelligence he passed on to then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. The top Clinton ally told investigators on the House Select Committee on Benghazi Tuesday in a closed-door deposition. Blumenthal, subpoenaed by the committee, also did not verify any of the intelligence he forwarded to the nation's top diplomat. Instead, Blumenthal was copying and pasting memos from Tyler Drumheller, a former CIA operative who was looking into a Libya-related business venture, and sending them to Clinton, two people familiar with his testimony told Politico. One of the folks providing her the largest volume of information was simply and merely a conduit of someone who may have had business interests in Libya, said panel chairman Trey Gowdy at the end of a nearly 9-hour interview. Aha, so, a couple things to pull out here. One, that Blumenthal was merely passing along intelligence from a former CIA operative, Tyler Drumheller. This appears to be confirmed. We will look at later how this is not the first time that Blumenthal has relied on intelligence from Mr. Drumheller. They have a long connection. But I think this raises a bigger question, which is, why was Hillary Clinton getting these private memos from an intelligence network which was operating outside the government, when, as Secretary of State, she would have had access to literally the entire U.S. intelligence community? I mean, we know, according to an article which was published by McClatchy on July 20th, 2015, that out of the 40 emails that they've reviewed from Clinton so far, they found intelligence from at least 5 different agencies in them. They say specifically that the Benghazi email, which was made public, contained information from the National Security Agency, the Defense Intelligence Agency, and the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, which is a spy agency that maps and tracks satellite imagery, according to an official who has to remain anonymous because of the sensitivity of the matter. The other 4 classified emails contained information from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence and the CIA, the official said. So, we know she had access to all of this information. Why would she go to some outside source where the intelligence that was being passed along to her was not being vetted? I think also it's kind of interesting to note that they have found intelligence from the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, which deals specifically in spy satellites. That might have something to do with the Talent Keyhole, which we looked at earlier. So maybe to get a better understanding of how this group was operating, how they got connected to Clinton, why they were passing along this information, we should explore the whole Blumenthal-Drumheller connection to each other and to Hillary Clinton. The following was an article which was published in the Washington Times, March 25th, 2015. And it's titled, "Another Murky Mystery Surrounding Hillary's Private Email." The article reads as follows. We're going to skip down here to the middle. In 2001 and 2002, Mr. Drumheller served as European Division Chief at the CIA's Directorate of Operations, where he was a highly controversial figure whose disinformation campaigns often landed him in hot water. As investigative journalist Kenneth Timmerman has pointed out, Mr. Drumheller was at the center of the Niger uranium story, later used by the left and the press to claim that President George W. Bush had lied about Saddam Hussein's possession of weapons of mass destruction, WMDs. On 3 separate occasions, Mr. Timmerman wrote, he passed the Niger information up the food chain as validated intelligence when the CIA had warned that it was not. On September 6, 2007, Mr. Blumenthal published a column at Salon.com in which he cited an April 2006 60 Minutes interview with Mr. Drumheller, who claimed that the CIA had received documentary intelligence from Saddam's foreign minister that he did not have WMDs. In his column, Mr. Blumenthal stated that 2 former senior CIA officers have confirmed Mr. Drumheller's account to me, leading Mr. Blumenthal to accuse Mr. Bush of lying. It appears that Mr. Drumheller and Mr. Blumenthal were simpatico, at least regarding criticism of pre-war intelligence. Was that, in fact, the start of a mutually beneficial relationship? After leaving the CIA, Mr. Drumheller advised John Kerry's 2004 presidential campaign. 3 years later, he and Mr. Blumenthal worked on Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. Aha, so a couple things to note here. We should note the long relationship between Tyler Drumheller and Sidney Blumenthal. Also, the fact that here we see back in 2007, Blumenthal was once again relying on information which was being passed on by Tyler Drumheller, the ex-CIA man. One other thing I guess we should note is also the connections to Hillary Clinton's 2008 campaign of both Tyler Drumheller and Sidney Blumenthal. We will see these connections continually popping up with other characters in this tangled web later on. So, who was funding this operation? This is a good question. I think one of these articles brought that up. Now, who is funding this operation? Was Tyler Drumheller being paid for generating these intelligence reports? And if so, who is he being paid by? Sidney Blumenthal? Clinton directly? Somebody else? Was Sidney Blumenthal being paid to pass these along? Hard to say, but something tells me that Drumheller wasn't just passing along intelligence reports from his sensitive sources out of the goodness of his heart. Well, of course, if you only read the mainstream news, we're expected to believe that nobody was getting paid for any of this work. According to the sources who were leaking information from Blumenthal's private congressional testimony, an article appeared in Politico on June 17, 2015. It's titled, Benghazi Panel Probes Sidney Blumenthal's Work for David Brock. And we're going to skip down almost to the very end here and take a look at who was paying who. The article reads as follows. The reason Blumenthal initially came into the Select Committee's sights was the Libyan intelligence he emailed to Clinton while she was Secretary of State. On Tuesday, he testified that he received the intelligence from a business contact and wasn't being paid to pass it along to Clinton, according to sources. Aha. So, again, we're expected to believe that nobody was getting paid, it was just being passed on. Nothing to see here. But this does raise a question. If Blumenthal wasn't getting paid by Clinton, then it's probably likely, we got to assume then if he wasn't making any money, how could he be paying Tyler Drumheller to pass him sensitive intelligence reports? Well, maybe the answer is they weren't being paid in the traditional sense. Well, let's speculate here. Let's ask a question. If Drumheller wasn't being quote-unquote paid in the traditional sense, perhaps he was being compensated in other ways. Could be possible that he was being fed back classified intelligence from the Clinton circle. A man who deals in knowledge and secrets and influence has to cultivate his sources somewhere, right? So I guess the question would be, was Tyler Drumheller operating on a quid pro quo basis within the Clinton network? Would perhaps satellite imagery or intercepted phone conversations be useful to a man like Tyler Drumheller? Alas, we can only speculate at this point. As far as the mainstream reporting goes, they don't know who handled the top secret information, where it was sent, who received it. And so far, Drumheller is not doesn't have a spotlight on him in this whole investigation. But, with a little bit of digging, we can name someone in the Clinton intelligence network who did handle classified information. And that man's name is Cody Shearer. So first off, I think we haven't really discussed Shearer yet, so let's get a little background on who he is and what he's done in the past, because he seems to be very well plugged into this whole off-the-books intelligence spy network that we have going on around Hillary Clinton and Sidney Blumenthal. So for some background, let's turn to a few excerpts from an article that appeared in National Review. The article was published on June 1st, 2015, and it's titled, Meet Cody Shearer, the strangest character in Hillary's vast left-wing conspiracy. The article begins like this. Few people have heard of Cody Shearer, the unsanctioned diplomat, private eye, and Clinton flunky whose name surfaced in connection with the so-called intelligence reports Sidney Blumenthal was channeling to Hillary Clinton during her time at the State Department. But this shadowy fixture of the Clinton machine was everywhere in the 1990s, including war-torn Bosnia, where he became the subject of a State Department investigation after he represented himself as an agent of the U.S. government and took cash from a genocidal warlord. Skipping down. Though often described as a journalist, Shearer hasn't written much since the 1980s. His work, like that of his father, Lloyd Shearer, the former editor of Parade magazine, was often gossipy and reputation-ruining. A series of columns the younger Shearer wrote on the sexual proclivities of former Texas Senator John Tower sank his nomination for Defense Secretary in 1989. Shearer's career took a strange turn when the Clintons entered the White House in 1992. His entree into the first family's orbit was Strobe Talbot, Shearer's brother-in-law who had been a friend of Bill Clinton since the president's days at Oxford. Talbot served as Deputy Secretary in Bill Clinton's State Department. His brother-in-law took a different route, allegedly working with Clinton enforcer Terry Lenzer to investigate and, at times, intimidate women who accused Bill Clinton of sexual harassment. But Shearer's political intrigues in the 90s extended beyond U.S. shores. In the middle of the decade, for reasons that remain unclear, he traveled to Europe to negotiate with associates of Radovan Karadzic, the Bosnian Serb president known to have orchestrated the mass killings of Bosnian Muslims, including the Srebrenica genocide during the brutal Yugoslav wars. Representing himself as an agent of the State Department, Shearer told his Serbian contacts, which included members of Karadzic's family, that he could reduce the severity of impending war crimes charges if Karadzic surrendered. He claimed he was in contact not only with his brother-in-law, but also with then-Secretary of State Madeleine Albright and even with President Clinton himself. Skipping down. A subsequent State Department investigation found that the Serbs paid Shearer at least $25,000 for his efforts, though the Serbs themselves claim he was paid much more. Although Shearer's negotiations on behalf of the U.S. government were unauthorized, the Wall Street Journal reported that Strobe Talbot knew of his brother-in-law's activities at least 1 year before the State Department did, and asked him to stop. He only felt compelled to do so, according to the Journal, because Shearer was erroneously informing his Serbian contacts that the U.S. supported a plan to partition Bosnia, and not because he was conducting shadow diplomacy with a genocidal warlord. Alright, so take a few notes here. Shearer's connections to the Clinton, including Bill Clinton's one of Bill Clinton's former top diplomats in the State Department, a Strobe Talbot, who is Shearer's brother-in-law. Also, we should point out that he was acting as a shadow representative of the U.S. government and some kind of agent, some foreign agent. You know, nobody really knew he was unauthorized, of course, and nobody really knew what he was doing except for his brother-in-law, Strobe Talbot. Sort of sounds like a spy or something, right? Well, in the Guccifer hack, which you can go look, the archive of it, there are 2 screen captures of emails which came from Sidney Blumenthal's email account, which were sent from Cody Shearer, which really haven't garnered much attention. And that's what we're going to examine today, because these emails will lead us to connections to spies and the CIA. The first is an email that Cody Shearer sent to Sid Blumenthal, and it's dated January 17th, 2013. Now, the email itself is short and sweet. It has no body at all, no text, anything like that. But the subject line reads, "Sid, this is classified." Now, what exactly he was talking about? Well, there is an attachment on the email titled Washington, D.C. Itinerary for Derek and Sue, January 16th through 21st, 2013, final. And this attachment, which you can also find in the Guccifer archive, looks like an itinerary for a former U.S. diplomat, one Derek Shearer, and his wife, Sue Toigo, her last name Toigo, and as you can probably guess, it's about as boring as an itinerary sounds. But just because the actual document's boring, the names and connections are quite interesting. So, who is Derek Shearer? Well, let's just take a few sentences from his biography that appears on the Huffington Post, where he is a frequent contributor. And his biography reads as follows. Ambassador Derek Shearer is currently a Chevalier Professor of Diplomacy and World Affairs at Occidental College in Los Angeles. He also serves as Director of Global Affairs, handling the college's international relations and directing the expansion of its international affairs program. Derek Shearer served in the Clinton administration as an economics official in the Commerce Department, and then as ambassador to Finland from 1994 to 97. Among his many accomplishments were the creation of the administration's coordinated strategy to the Nordic-Baltic region and the hosting of the Clinton-Yeltsin summit in Helsinki. After his diplomatic service, Ambassador Shearer was a fellow at the Economic Strategy Institute and then at the Woodrow Wilson Scholar Center in Washington, D.C. He also was a visiting Woodrow Wilson Fellow and Ambassador in Residence at a number of colleges. He served as a foreign policy advisor to Vice President Gore during the 2000 presidential campaign and to Senator Hillary Clinton in the 2007-2008 presidential primary. He endorsed and supported Senator Obama in the general election. Skipping down, the very last line here, I'm just going to throw this in. It says he currently resides in Pacific Palisades, California with his wife, Sue Toigo, and 2 dogs and 2 cats. Now, take note of Derek Shearer's former position in the Bill Clinton administration, including as the ambassador to Finland for a few years in the 1990s. Also, once again, we see popping up his connections as an advisor to Hillary Clinton's 2008 presidential campaign. And again, this connection just keeps popping up with all these guys. They were plugged into Hillary's 2008 presidential bid. Also, take note of his wife, Sue Toigo, as we will be looking at her and her connections in a later episode of the BS File. Now, if you've been paying attention, you might be saying to yourself, hold on, wait a second. This guy was an ambassador, but that was only until 1997. Why would his travel schedule in January of 2013 be classified? Now, that's a great question. Perhaps the $1 million question. But we may be able to dig up the reason behind it, where we explore a few interesting connections between Ambassador Derek Shearer's employer, Occidental College, and the CIA. But we can't delve into that today, but we will look at some of the evidence in a later episode. And it is very interesting, an underreported story which involves Presidents Barack Obama and Zbigniew Brzezinski and, current CIA Director John Brennan. So we'll get into that. I'll try to do that maybe the 3rd or 4th episode in this series on the Hillary Clinton emails. But at the very least, we should take note that for whatever reason, Cody Shearer believed this information was classified at the time he sent it, and that he did send this classified information to Sidney Blumenthal, who, as we have seen, was the go-between for Hillary Clinton and this spy network that we have been examining. Finally, There is one other email from Shearer, which is dated October 19th, 2011. It's addressed to one Joe Wilson and carbon copied to Sidney Blumenthal and a man named Gio Domenico Pico, who appears to be a former United Nations Assistant Secretary General. In this particularly nondescript and not very interesting email, Cody Shearer appears to be firming up a lunch appointment with this group of individuals. But it's the included original message, which was sent by Joe Wilson, that is so intriguing. Now, in the original email, Joe Wilson writes as follows: I have spoken to my colleague in Dubai. He has reviewed the sanitized literature I sent him and has a couple of options that he is going to discreetly explore in the next several days. He promised to give me a clear proposal or set of options by Wednesday of next week. With that in mind, I propose that we meet in D.C. next Wednesday evening for dinner to review everything. Does that work for everybody? Signed, Joe. Aha, now you might be saying, alright, what does that mean? I mean, there's nothing there. But what caught my eye is this so-called sanitized literature that Wilson was giving to his partner in Dubai. Now, in the intelligence world, sanitization often deals with classified information, which is something that will pertain directly to our case that we're looking at here. So let's just read a real quick blurb from Wikipedia on the sanitization of classified information. Wikipedia notes that sanitization is the process of removing sensitive information from a document or other message so that the document may be distributed to a broader audience. When the intent is secrecy protection, such as in dealing with classified information, sanitization attempts to reduce the document's classification level, possibly yielding an unclassified document. Aha, okay, so keep in mind that sanitization could certainly include removing classification markings from a document, which we looked at way back in the very beginning of this episode. And also note that once again, we find a member of the Clinton Intelligence Network, in fact two of them, Sidney Blumenthal and Cody Shearer, potentially dealing with classified information. And sanitized classified information at that. Now, of course, we have to remember that this conversation is being taken completely out of context. It's very likely that it has nothing to do with Hillary Clinton, and it's entirely possible that the sanitized documents are not classified intelligence, or even anything related to the U.S. government. They could very well just be some corporate papers with the company names and logos removed for all we know. However, we do have some circumstantial evidence to back this speculation up, because the Joe Wilson, who is referenced in the email, just happens to be retired Ambassador Joseph C. Wilson IV, who has some very serious ties to the CIA. And specifically, I mean his wife, Valerie Plame Wilson, who was outed as an undercover CIA officer in 2003 during the very famous Plamegate affair. So, how do we know this? Well, according to Sidney Blumenthal's leaked contact list, which you can find in the Guccifer archive, one of the addresses listed for Joe Wilson is in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where Joe and Valerie Wilson moved in 2006. There are also two phone numbers listed for Joe Wilson, which are then followed by the word Val, that's V-A-L, which probably is short for Valerie. A screen name entry for a Valerie Wilson also appears in the contact list of Sidney Blumenthal. And furthermore, the main email address listed for Joe Wilson, the one which is in the email itself that we've been studying, uses a private domain name which was registered in 2007. Well, in Sidney Blumenthal's contact list, there's also another entry for an email account at the same email address, but this one in the name of Valerie. Also, there's an alternative email address for Joe Wilson, which links him to a company called Symbion Power LLC, that's spelled Symbion, who on their website in a July 2009 press release announced, quote, Ambassador Joseph Wilson, retired, joins Symbion Power Advisory Board, unquote. Where they then go on to detail his accolades and achievements and, the fact that his wife was outed as a CIA officer. I'll toss in a link to that so you can take a look at it. Also, I found a CNBC interview that Joe Wilson did in 2010 where he was representing Symbion Power. So you can take a look at that and then match it to other photos of him that have been circulating around with his wife, Valerie Plame, and you can confirm his identity that way. So, yeah, the Clinton Intelligence Network certainly appears to have some serious operators with CIA connections. I think we'll take a look back at the Plamegate affair in a future installment of the Hillary Clinton email saga episodes of this podcast. Alright, so now that we've begun to unravel this whole intelligence network, what are we looking at here? Well, first of all, I think, at first, it seemed like Clinton was either running or using some kind of off-the-books spy network while she was Secretary of the State. But now that we have been able to get a glimpse of just how plugged in this crew is to the CIA and the intelligence community, I'm starting to think, well, it might not be so off the books after all. But at the very least, though, I think we've identified two individuals linked to both Hillary Clinton and Sidney Blumenthal who may have sent or received classified information. Tyler Drumheller and Cody Shearer. And I think these are two individuals who need greater scrutiny in this whole Clinton email gate scandal server thing. However, if you were hoping for them to come before Congress and testify, I wouldn't hold your breath. Because, as was reported by the New York Times, in a very unfortunate turn of events for the American public and very convenient for Sidney Blumenthal and Hillary Clinton, Tyler Drumheller just passed away about a week or so ago of complications from pancreatic cancer. He was 63 years old. And I'll toss in a link to the New York Times obituary for Tyler Drumheller. Now, unfortunately, this seems to happen quite often with people who get involved with the Clintons or are friends with them, so I think we may have to add Tyler Drumheller's name to the old Clinton body count list, which I'll link up to you in the show notes. It's an interesting read. I also think Cody Shearer should be careful out there. Anyways, join us next week when we will go into part 2 of the Clinton email gate scandal. And we're going to take a look at some kind of operation that the Clinton Intelligence Network operatives Cody Shearer, Tyler Drumheller, and Sidney Blumenthal were cooking up in Libya in 2011 with the former chief of the U.S. Special Operations Command. This has been the BS File. You can join the open source investigation at www.suchbs.com. Have a great day.